What we're trying to fight here, guys, is the Turtle Boy exception to the First Amendment.
I haven't been to the office within the last 2 weeks, I think.
It's just insane. It's an insane, unserious response. It's relevant to the Reed matter, to our matter, it's all the same alleged victims. The district attorney's office released 4,000 text messages from Trooper Tully as a FOIA request to the general public, while we, as defendants in a criminal matter with constitutional rights attached, have gotten nothing.
I think that people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the legal officials, need to take another course in evidence.
Ms. Peter changed those titles. They impact Mr. Kearney's alleged intent to intimidate witnesses. Titles like, I'm going to kick Colin Albert's ass.
It's disheartening to see this kind of thing happening because, it is kind of an abuse to use a grand jury in that manner.
Thomas Paine, Samuel Adams, Mark Twain would be spinning in their graves if they saw that a judge was looking at First Amendment protected satire.
In the aftermath of the Karen Reed case, Aiden Turtle Boy Kearney is still, to this day, fighting to get materials from the Commonwealth underlying their prosecution of him. And I have a special guest today helping me on this issue of About the Law. Crazy hearing in good old Norfolk County Superior Court in Massachusetts. Hi, I'm attorney Andrew Myers. In this episode of About the Law, joining me is West Coast attorney Yolie Medina. Hey, Yolie, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Maybe we should retitle the podcast East Coast, West Coast, because I'm here just outside of Boston and you're there in Southern California.
East Coast, West Coast, About the Law.
And two attorneys from different coasts, and we don't always agree. So it makes for a good podcast, I think, because you always point out some things that I've missed. I don't know if I've ever pointed out anything that you've missed because you're right on top of everything, even though this happened way over here outside of Boston. So some crazy things happened in a hearing in the Aiden Kearney case on August 13th. And it seems like his attorneys are still fighting to get materials. There were, 4,000 missing pages in one set of stuff that was said to have been produced by the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth came forward with it. Guess what? The day before this hearing we're talking about. So, anybody that thinks the Commonwealth is playing, make your own conclusions. We'll come back to that at the end of this episode, but it's a pattern that seems to be running through all of these Norfolk County cases. Aiden Kearney's attorney is Timothy Bradl, and he explained to the court that they are still fighting to receive numerous emails, specifically by Massachusetts State Police Lieutenant Brian Tully, related to the Karen Reed case and the Turtle Boy prosecution. And this is material that has still not produced in discovery formally, but guess what? It has been produced to reporters.
Judge, the Commonwealth in this case has been going to the mattresses, so to speak, to keep this stuff from us. And meanwhile, the employer of the special prosecutor has released a FOIA of these items, which...
It's an unfortunate camera angle because Timothy Bradl, Turtle Boy's attorney, is behind Robert Cosgrove, who is the special prosecutor. So it's unfortunate. The other rendition I saw of this hearing was even worse. They just focused on the bench the whole time. So anyhow.
Just to move ahead for a sec, the fact that they released all this stuff pretty much obliterates this Commonwealth's impoundment privacy argument. But while we've been going back and forth with all this court time with keeping things secret from the defense here, the district attorney's office released 4,000 text messages from Trooper Tully as a FOIA request to the general public, while we, as defendants in a criminal matter with constitutional rights attached, have gotten nothing. So it's out there, this FOIA request from the employer of the special prosecutor, but not from this special prosecutor. So in terms of the integrity of this stuff, we need the special prosecutor here to give us the items in the context of this case.
The 4,000 text messages, were they
Yes.
related to this case, Mr. Bradl, or related to other cases?
Well, it's relevant to the Reed matter, to our matter, it's all the same alleged victims. It's actually emails, not text messages, Your Honor, I'm
Okay.
sorry. But it's 4,000 pages of stuff that we've been wrangling back and forth about. Meanwhile, the district attorney's office releases them in a FOIA like a week ago. That has been bandied all over media while we've been trying to get this stuff for a long time.
Okay, let me
So
go to
it's,
Mr.
yes, it's a good thing that we're getting it.
Yeah.
But we need the government, in this case, to give us what they are contending is that stuff.
Let me just go to Mr. Cosgrove for a minute. Mr. Cosgrove, were you aware of that?
The short answer is no.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, part of the price of having an independent special prosecutor, Your Honor. I don't work out of the office. I haven't been to the office within the last 2 weeks, I think. So I was not aware of that. I was aware that 12 news organizations had filed FOIA requests for information in the Karen Reed case.
Sure.
But I wasn't aware of what particularly had been released. I'll look into that.
That makes no sense to me at all. Does that make any sense to you at all that, this case goes back to October of 2023, I believe, when they first went after Mr. Kearney. And under the Constitution, they're required to provide materials in a case like this. They're still fighting to get the materials, yet under a Freedom of Information Act request by the media, oh yeah, here guys, here you go. And it's true, the Boston media has been going nuts with it all over the last week.
Yeah, no, this is wrong. They should be producing the stuff, and that's not an excuse that because he's a special prosecutor, that he doesn't go to the office. I mean, I've never heard that as being an excuse under the law for not being aware of things and not producing things. I mean, I don't get it.
Well, the special prosecutor was named after the first prosecutor, Ken Mello, had to step aside by a conflict of interest that came up. And Mr. Cosgrove, with all due respect, is a retired Massachusetts Superior Court judge. And I hate to say it, but maybe he should have stayed retired because he doesn't seem to be on top of this case at all. And so he does not work out of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, which is handling this and all the other crazy cases. The Miles King case, which is 4 years old and a discovery still has not come in, and also has come in like the day before hearings. Karen Reed case, where discovery was produced during the pendency of during the continuation of the first trial. The inverted video, notably, had never been produced until the middle of trial when they showed the backwards flipped video of the car. So
It sounds very familiar to the Koberger case, where the Detective Mowry was gathering information before the discovery hearing the day before. You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. And you shake your head, though, when there are 3 or 4 different cases in your state, Massachusetts, and they're all being handled out of the Norfolk County District Attorney. And, there's a question, is it, and our commenters, I would love you to comment on this, please, before we move on. Is it incompetence or is it a plan? Are they trying to be deceptive? There's just no excuse to release stuff under a Freedom of Information Act request by the media, which I'm not saying they shouldn't have done that. Absolutely, as a former reporter, they should have absolutely done that. But why are they not also in advance of that or simultaneous to that producing the material to the defense attorneys as they're required to do? Just makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense. And I think it's a combination of both. I think a part of it is that it's just everybody's just doing their own thing. They're not coordinated. They don't communicate, and it's just like a cog. You're just stuck in this bureaucracy. And then another part of it might be intentional, but I don't know that for sure. But it sure seems very strange.
The special prosecutor should be more on top of this. I mean, say whatever you will about our special prosecutor in the Reed case, Hank Brennan. he was a very aggressive guy. He was on top of it. Whether you like the guy or not, he was on top of stuff. You might not have liked his slant or the way he spoke, but he was on top of the stuff from the very beginning. Bradl, Turtle Boy's attorney, reminded the court that on July 25th, the court was told that 4,727 pages of material from Lieutenant Tully's email had been produced. So he said, we produced almost 5,000 pages. Then came one of the Bederow letters in late July. Turns out that 4,000 of those pages were blank. So don't go telling the court you've produced 5,000 pages and 4,000 of them are blank. So Judge Michael Doolin asked Special Prosecutor Robert Cosgrove about that one.
Was some of that blank or?
Well, the only information I have with respect to that was a letter from Mr. Bederow that arrived 5 days later complaining that the bulk of those pages were blank. I do not.
You better believe that he complained. If somebody sent me 5,000 pages and 4,000 of them were blank, I'd be jumping up and down. But that's just me.
Not know why they would be. I haven't been able to figure out why they would be. As a result of that letter, I went back to the DA's office and sat down with one of their electronics people and had them make an entire new copy off of my laptop. And I actually added a little material that had come in since, provided by one of the prosecutors in the Reed case. But the bulk of it was the same 5,000 pages. I then went through that personally with the electronics person sitting by my side and assured that each and every page was reproduced on the copy that I sent to the defendant. So
Have you sent that to Mr. Bradl or Mr. Bederow?
I've sent it to Mr. Bradl, and I'm informed that he's got it, so I'm not quite sure why we're still talking about it.
Got it.
Got it?
Got it yesterday.
Well, you know what? I might think about the possibility of believing that it was sent the day before, that it was a technical mistake. But in that stuff like this happens all the time with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. I mean, in the Miles King hearing, things were produced the day before the hearing and even the morning before a discovery hearing. So, I don't know. I don't know.
It sounds like somebody scanned them backwards. They had the pages turned the other way, or who knows what, or copied them. They had the page on the flip side, not the regular side where it gets copied.
Well, my scanner automatically looks at both sides of the paper.
Yeah,
it looks at this side. My scanner, which I've had the same brand, I've had to get new ones because I use them so much they burn out. I've been using the same type of scanner since 2008. And if you stick the paper in the wrong way, it'll scan it properly. So I don't know whether they're using a scanner from the 1950s or if it. The other thing that came to mind is, a lot of discovery is electronic now. And I will often use those thumb drives. And what I'll do is I'll put the stuff onto the thumb drive. I'll pull the thumb drive out of the computer, put it back into that or another computer and check to make sure all the stuff is there. Because things do happen, but you check. You check, you trust and verify, to quote someone else.
Very true.
So someone is not, checking their own work. So Bradl, after saying, we got it yesterday, he then explained to the court that the grand jury that indicted Mr. Kearney only indicted him after some of Kearney's podcasts were shown to them, but with titles that had been changed. They changed the titles, falsely injecting intent by Mr. Kearney to cause harm.
Ms. Peter changed the titles of Mr. Kearney's shows.
Katherine Peter, we could do a whole podcast on her. We mentioned her previously. She's someone that has a deep-seated hatred for Mr. Kearney. Apparently, many years ago, they worked together. They had a disagreement, and she provided a lot of the material that went to the grand jury, and a lot of it was very questionable. But apparently, she's the one that took the Turtle Boy episodes and relabeled them to show malintent by him.
That were these 4-hour shows, Your Honor, that had innocent titles, like, For example, Karen Reed case, where's Michael Proctor? Amiri King wants to fight Turtle Boy, Canton updates, anti-Bev Cannoni out of control. So it's a title that encapsulates a 4-hour show. That was his work. Ms. Peter changed those titles, provided it to the Commonwealth, told Lieutenant Tully in the emails that we have about changing the titles. So they knew these titles are very incriminatory, and they suggest they impact Mr. Kearney's alleged intent to intimidate witnesses. The titles were all changed, and I can proffer up a spreadsheet of the actual titles and then what she changed them to in these attachments that, oh, gee, now we can't open them. So do the math on that, if I may approach, Your Honor.
So this confirms the old-fashioned saying you can indict a ham sandwich, because at a grand jury it is secret, and Mr. Kearney was not able to have his people there to cross-examine or point out this is something shady, people. This is they've taken my episodes and they've changed the titles to make it look like I was saying something I wasn't.
That we have a grand jury that was listening to these video clips with titles like, you know, I'm going to kick Colin Albert's ass. And that's just me paraphrasing, but nasty titles.
Give me another copy of this one.
Yeah. Trying to destroy Colin's life. The actual title is Commonwealth tells more lies about John O'Keefe's GPS data. That's his real title. And these were suggested to be Mr. Kearney's expressions, which of course would be used as his bad intent. And they're false, and they're lies, and they were done, and we know this from the emails, from this Catherine Peter person.
You know, grand juries can really be abused where only one side, the prosecution, the state, in this case, the Commonwealth, is the only one presenting materials to the grand jury. And the reason people say that you could indict a ham sandwich is because the ham sandwich isn't allowed to have anyone there in a preliminary hearing, in a trial, any other judicial proceeding. The defendant is always entitled to have their representative there. It's really fundamental and basic to our constitutional principles. But the grand jury, you know, presents a lot of ethical concerns on the part of attorneys that, you know, don't adhere to the rules. And that is what appears to have happened here. I don't know. Have I gone overboard on that point?
No, I think you're right. I think that you know, the integrity of the evidence that's being produced can be manipulated, and without any checks and balances, where it's just the Commonwealth and the grand jury, it's hard to know what's going on. You know, you have to assume they're going to follow the rules, but at the same time, it's secret. So how do you know if they're following the rules? You just have to assume that the Commonwealth is being ethical, and that's an assumption that seems to be going awry.
Yeah, that's quite an assumption.
Yeah.
And again, you pointed out a parallel to the Kohberger case before. My parallel here is, do you remember early in the Kohberger case in 2023, I believe it was, there was going to be a preliminary hearing to determine if they could continue to hold Mr. Kohberger, and both sides were going to be represented, both the prosecution, the state of Idaho, but also Mr. Kohberger was going to have his attorneys there. And they were reaching out to see if they could get Bethany Funk there. She apparently had exculpatory information, which has never been released, by the way. But I digress. And so while the sides were discussing outwardly to the public about having a preliminary hearing at which both sides would be represented, the state of Idaho, Ashley Jennings and Bill Thompson, went around behind everybody's back and indicted him. Preliminary hearing canceled. So I just never understood why that was allowed to occur, but it was.
Yep.
And indictments are the procedure of the day in Massachusetts. And so
Yeah. It's a very strange procedure, and I guess the basis is you just have to assume that the government is being ethical, and I don't know how you can do that these days, especially with these cases coming to light.
Well, long before I went to law school, I had very little trust in the government. So that's just me. That's just my commentary. So people are correct to have a lot of doubt about these procedures. So at one point, Special Prosecutor Cosgrove, who we see there in front of the camera, gave the court Turtle Boy material that he called tenacious commentary that he claimed was being published on an almost daily basis, still presumably going after witnesses in the Reed case. Bradl put it in a historical perspective. Listen to this.
Just watching you peruse Mr. Kearney's publications, okay? Thomas Paine, Samuel Adams, Mark Twain would be spinning in their graves if they saw that a judge was looking at First Amendment protected satire, jokes, criticism, as if there's some risk that this stuff should be sanctionable. It's just completely antithetical to the First Amendment, Your Honor.
Okay, I don't want
Really.
Mark Twain to feel poorly about me.
Really.
So,
Well, but it's a serious point. It really is. I mean, some of these materials have already been produced to the public and yet not to the defendant. Some of these materials just haven't been produced at all. Some of the materials that had been produced earlier, there's still a order against the parties that they can't disclose what they already have. So it seems like the First Amendment has kind of been erased from practice, not from the Declaration of Rights in Massachusetts or the United States Constitution. But, in Massachusetts, they just don't care anymore.
It's very strange. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this whole thing. It just seems, I try not to think like conspiracy wise, like that there are conspiracies, but it just seems like the system isn't functioning, as it should be. And there's a reason for it. And it's either intentional or just complete negligence in having people who just don't take their job seriously, or they think they can do whatever they want. I don't know.
Yeah. And, it's kind of like, you remember the old National Lampoon? I don't think that's been around for years. There have been other pieces of sarcasm in our media. And it's just, that's something that's protected by the First Amendment. No question. You can't incite violence. You can't, the old law school example is you can't cry fire in a crowded theater. This has nothing to do with that. This is satire, and it's journalism, and it's reporting facts that mass media has turned their back on. And so it's clearly, obviously, without any question, and I've taught this stuff, without any question, it is not anything that violates the First Amendment. And for the Commonwealth to have a special prosecutor who doesn't know what's going on and then to present stuff to the judge as though he ought to be reviewing it, it's scary. It's scary, both as a former reporter, but also as an attorney who's been practicing in these courts for all these years. So anyhow, Mr. Kearney, who you see walking out of the Norfolk County Superior Court in Dedham, along with his attorney, Timothy Bradl, spoke outside the courthouse on the difficulty of pulling materials out of the Commonwealth. But in the end, and you're going to hear what they say about that, but in the end, Attorney Bradl expressed optimism, which I found interesting.
They're supposed to just give this stuff up willingly. They're supposed to go out of their way to make sure we have all this stuff. And it's just, I can't believe he was saying that, even after they agreed to give us the extracted redaction, they we changed our mind and, forget it. It's just insane. It's an insane, unserious response. Yeah. So what we're trying to fight here, guys, is the Turtle Boy exception to the First Amendment. You guys can use all these FOIA requests and, you guys can have them and talk about them. But, the guy that's behind, everything for why we're here, he can't touch him. We can't talk about him. We can't use him. Judge Doolin, we are happy that Judge Doolin is looking at this case. And, the old saw, the wheels of justice move slowly, but it's going to come around. We're going to be okay. It is frustrating. We know he's going to do the right thing, okay? He's trying to be respectful to Mr. Cosgrove, but I think that, that bank account is dwindling. And it's gonna go south real soon. And we're gonna get all this stuff, and we're gonna be able to freely use this stuff. And when we do, fasten your seatbelts.
I found that to be a pretty interesting observation by the attorney that, as much as they're fighting right now and as much as they're not getting materials or they're getting 4,000 blank pages or as much as that's happening, they have confidence in the case. A number of Turtle Boy's charges have already been stripped, and there is, I think, 2 motions to dismiss pending. So I'm not totally confident that the motions to dismiss will be allowed, but I can't imagine a jury putting up with this. Can you?
No, it's like, especially there now, everybody has experienced the Karen Reed case. There was no evidence of a collision.
Right.
And now, this is a related case. And I just don't think that they're going to appreciate their tax dollars being spent on prosecuting Turtle Boy. I could be wrong. Maybe there are taxpayers who want this funded, but I don't know. There are a lot of
I can't see it either. Boston is a big media city. A lot of schools give degrees in media. I got one. And people are interested in what's going on in the world. And the newspapers and the TV stations, and I'm not going to paint with a broad brush. There are some that are doing a great job. But by and large, they just kind of read headlines and moved on and got on to, what Mayor Wu was eating for lunch that day. So it just seems to me that, people like this kind of thing. They know that I don't think there's very many people that don't realize that Mr. Kearney was the one that uncovered a massive, fraud of overtime fraud in the Massachusetts State Police. Getting back to this case, one thing that's pending, and there's just so much going on with this legally since it's been going on for nearly 2 years as we do this episode. Attorney Bradl has filed a motion for an evidentiary hearing. He wants to get to the bottom of all this. What was really going on? He wants to put Lieutenant Tully on the stand and question him. He wants to put the former prosecutor, Ken Mello, on the stand and question him as to what was going on between those two. At one point, former Massachusetts State Police officer Michael Proctor had just said before they had everything put together, well, why don't we just arrest him? Why don't we just arrest Mr. Kearney? Let's just arrest him. They obviously didn't like Mr. Kearney. They obviously didn't like him. They obviously wanted to put him behind bars. But what was the animus? What was really going on? They used this woman by the name of Katherine Peter to put the case together. What were the conversations between all of these people and Katherine Peter to dig up as much dirt as she could on him? So it's just.
And why were they using, were they using Katherine Peter as a private investigator of some sort?
Well, they were using her to dig up dirt on Turtle Boy, and she, at the time, she had criminal charges pending against her in 2 different courts in Massachusetts. So she was, in fact, cooperating with them. She was producing evidence, and again, she's the one that, as we pointed out before, she's the one that presented the materials that were ultimately used to the grand jury to infer by changing the titles, which were shown to the grand jurors, that, Mr. Kearney had intent to do harm to these people. And remember that the charges against him are intimidating witnesses. So if they're changing the titles, to let's get Colin Albert, that's prejudicial. That's highly prejudicial. So.
Well, it's very prejudicial. It's illegal. I would think you're manipulating evidence to the grand jury.
Well, that's nothing new in this court. That's nothing new out of the Norfolk County District Attorney. If you look at what they did to Karen Reed, or tried to do with Karen Reed, destroying her life for nearly 3 years. Or 3 years plus, I should say. It's really nothing new, and it's just I think they're pulling at straws to keep going after Kearney. They had their fun with him. They actually put him behind bars for a little period of time, and they still have that hanging over his head. And I think it's time for them to just take this case and crumple it up and throw it in the trash. But, Attorney Bradl, who's still talking, they had a nice press conference. It was a nice day, hot, but it was a nice summer day. So they talked for a little while about, just how awful this whole thing is. And
it is. It's just disheartening.
Yeah, it is. And to have lived in Massachusetts as long as I did and to have gone to law school there as I did and got my undergraduate degree and my law degree there, it's disheartening to see this kind of thing happening because, it is kind of an abuse to
Well,
use a
yeah.
grand jury in that manner. There's no real excuse for it. So let's see what our commenters have to say this week. Do you want to take the odds or the evens this week?
I'll take the evens.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
You can read the long one.
So this goes back to an episode that we had done previously on a slightly different topic, but user whatever, I can't read all those numbers, says more people need to support Turtle Boy's work, including the mainstream media, who just mentioned the false witness intimidation charges without any context. And that's true because you just hear that's the headline, and then they move on to, Mayor Wu cut a ribbon in Jamaica Plain today. He is the one that uncovered Morrissey sending private emails for official business and so much other evidence in the persecution of himself and Karen Reed. And I think that's a good point. I really do. So we go to comment number 4 this week.
Okay, mind altering. It says $1 million. Mind altering. $1 million to accuse a woman without evidence. $1 million, people. It's clear that what we're seeing now is just the tip of the iceberg of something that's lurking beneath the surface. What is all this really trying to cover up? The sum is outrageous just to make a scapegoat out of Karen. So who or what are they really protecting? John O'Keefe's death and the events leading up to it must be part of a larger story, a cover-up, and an outright conspiracy. What did O'Keefe know?
Yeah, he worked for the Boston Police Department, and other people have said that and speculated about that. And I don't know if we'll ever know. Good question. Number 3, Delta weight or Delta W8. Imagine knowingly wanting to prosecute an innocent woman. He, and they're talking about Michael Morrissey there, is an experienced district attorney. He knows when someone is culpable or when they are innocent. He's a corrupt official who doesn't care about anyone except his law enforcement buddies. I don't know. I do know that he's the head district attorney in Norfolk County. And he, obviously is behind and guiding prosecutions of Karen Reed and of Aiden Kearney and the Miles King case and others. There are others.
I think that people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the legal officials, need to take another course in evidence and what it takes, because I don't think they understand. I just don't think that they understand what, like, the how to put it forward. I don't know. I'm trying to find a rational explanation for why they're prosecuting people, and the evidence is just, it's not evidence. It's manipulated. I don't know.
That's a good point. I think they probably know evidence law. They took it in law school, but unless they're active trial attorneys, they don't. Either they've forgotten it or they are intentionally doing whatever they're doing. Remember that there's a large staff of attorneys in any district attorney's office, and specifically in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Mr. Morrissey is elected. He's an elected official, and he is by trade a politician, not really a lawyer. Sure, he went to law school. Sure, he has a degree. Sure, all that's true. But by career, he's a politician. He was the state representative for years for that part of that area. And after being a state representative for years, he then ran for and won election as the district attorney in Norfolk County. And he's up for re-election in November of 2026. So a year from the time we're recording this podcast, he will be actively campaigning. So that's his gig. Political stuff is his gig. He was a delegate to the Democratic convention the last cycle around, along with some people say, well, why isn't the governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey, why isn't she doing more? Well, they're buddies. They both went down to the Democratic convention together. So he's really a politician. I hesitate to say that the fish rots from the head down, so I won't say it. But I mean, in addition to being a politician, he is the head of the department, and he is the one that is guiding these prosecutions. In our previous episode, and I'll put it down in the bottom, in our previous episode, we actually saw some of the 4,000 pages of emails and what he has been up to while, sitting at the desk at the district attorney's office. And it's not all law related. I mean, a lot of times he was telling one mayor, geez, there's a job in another county. And he's doing a lot of other stuff, which I'll let you go down into that episode and watch because it's kind of interesting. But some of them were redacted altogether. There were total pages, entire pages that were redacted. So I don't know. That was a long-winded answer to that one, and I apologize. So
Maria Bengtson's Viking. I think I said that right.
I think you did too.
Okay. Oh, and now we know that Jan McKay didn't delete all the messages between her and her daughter like she testified to in front of several juries. I hope that they will soon get the unredacted version and that the judge stops the impoundment of all documents that the government is ashamed of. Interesting.
I wouldn't hold my breath. I mean, it's a good point. It's a good question, but I really wouldn't hold my breath. And our last slide, our last comment this episode is from Amy Bird. Hey, Amy. District Attorney Morrissey was afraid of what the cops would do to him if he didn't support their narrative. Not the truth, but their narrative. Interesting. People have said that. I just want to return to something that we said before. Remember how I said that there are motions pending in the Aiden Kearney case to hold an evidentiary hearing? Well, we don't know if that's going to happen or not. What we do know is that there are many unanswered questions in this case, and the Aiden Kearney case has been continued to the next hearing on September 24th. So about a month away, a little bit more than a month away from when we're recording this episode, there will be another hearing. And some have said not a lot happened in the hearing that we're talking about here today. It was just a lot of talk. And the judge, there are previous orders, for example, that the defense may not talk publicly about the materials that they've received. The defense has said, look, we want that lifted. We want to be able to talk about it. And that didn't happen. Aiden Kearney wanted motions allowed to just compel the discovery. That didn't happen. The judge said he'd look at it. So a lot of people said nothing really happened in the hearing. Nothing really happened.
No, it was kind of like a hearing about setting another hearing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this.
I don't know about you, but in my practice, the courts in Massachusetts are way overbooked. They're way overbooked. They've got so much going on. In fact, years ago, they truncated the whole motion process into something that requires the attorneys to really see if they can resolve it before they go into court. But the courts are so busy that when you do actually get into court, they pretty much limit your time. Mr. Myers, what do you want? Well, I've brought a motion to compel, we'll say. What's your argument? And they don't give you a lot of time. If you're still talking after a couple of minutes, they say, what do you really want? And then they give the other side their chance. And then either the judge says, I'll allow it, or the judge says, I will rule on it. And they generally rule on it, unless it's a complicated thing. They generally rule on it right away. They also want us quite frequently to do something the federal courts often do, and that is that they want us to write a proposed order. So if I want to compel you, Yolie Medina, to give me discovery, I will go to court with an order ready. I hereby compel Yolie Medina to give me the material. Now, they might change it a little bit, or they might say, Attorney Myers, go back to your office and, change this sentence. But my point is that the courts really focus sharply on what is it that you want to do. Move the court. Okay. Opposing party, what's your argument? Okay, step down, next case. So this just seemed to just kind of be a hearing about nothing. Remember the old Seinfeld show was a show about nothing? This seemed to be the Seinfeld show of Massachusetts. It was really a hearing about nothing.
about Yeah, I find that here in California, I can't get a motion date that's not less than 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. That it's especially in LA. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we pointed out before, we keep track of all the countries from which we get comments and questions. We're up to 77. Singapore chimed in this week. Singapore chimed in this week and said, hey, we have a comment, we have a question, but we are watching from Singapore. So now we have heard from a total of 77 different countries on our mighty little channel. And I thank you. If you are from a country that is not on this list, please let us know. So I don't know. I think we beat a dead horse here. But Yolie, do you have any closing thoughts before we move on?
No, just other that I mean, I feel the frustration that Turtle Boy's attorney is going through. I felt that here in my jurisdiction, and there's nothing you can do but just keep going.
Yeah.
You know?
I think you're right about that. So we would ask you to please go down in the bottom here, and it's the other way. It's down there. Like, subscribe if you've enjoyed our content. Let us know by subscribing and liking. As I've said in previous episodes, we would ask you to let us know if there are other cases, and I've gotten some interesting responses. The Spencer case, the Morphew case. There are other cases that we should be covering. So please let us know. And the final thing we always do is suggest an emoji. Do you have an emoji that you would suggest people drop to us if they've watched all the way through?
Some kind of a judicial symbol. I don't know.
A judicial symbol. Do they have scales of justices or
a hammer.
or a gavel or a courthouse, anything like that? Tell us what they have, because I don't really even know if they have anything like that. But yeah, leave us an emoji that has something to do with the law. In a previous episode, we asked for law books, and that was great. So thank you for giving us law books. So, all right, Yolie, thanks a lot for joining me. I really appreciate it. And please like, subscribe, share, and always be nice to each other out in the public, but also in our comments section.
Whether you are in the grocery store, the gas station, or anywhere else, please remember to be kind to people. You don't know what they're going through. And the same goes for our comments section. We want you to comment, but be nice, be kind, be positive if you can. And thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Have a good one.